You will never have this life because she's rich. Because she is making this out to look like it's attainable for you, and you think that this is a goal.
Man, almost choked there on this drink that I grew from herbs and fruits from my vegetable and orchard. I'm just playing. I'm traveling right now. I'm in a 2 bedroom, 2 bath apartment that my company got for me while I'm traveling. And this is not a homestead, but I am a homesteader. My name is Nico Brown, and I have a homestead in Central Florida. And when you're traveling for work, it's pretty easy to go down rabbit holes, and boy, did I find one. Let me show you what I'm talking about.
By the title and thumbnail of this video, you guys know that in today's video, I'm going to be talking about how much I hate family channels. I have beef, okay, not chicken, not lamb. I have beef, okay, with any sort of content creation that involves exploiting any sort of relationship with another human being or animal. It kind of gives me the ick, you know, it's kind of icky. I don't like it.
See what I mean? Isn't that crazy? So, I'm going to give some perspective on why I think people hate homesteaders. And I'm going to try my hardest not to be biased for obvious reasons while providing some balanced, I guess that's my opinion, right? Balanced feedback on it all. So, let's get into it. This rabbit hole that I'm speaking of essentially has people who are very passionately expressing their dislike, or I really feel like hate, for the homesteading community. And this really involves a lot because a lot can potentially fall into the category of homesteading or vice versa. So this could be trad wives, this could be just your stay-at-home mom, this could be, you know, the mom or parents that homeschool. This could involve religion or beliefs. A lot of these things tend to go hand in hand, and boy, there's a lot of people that they just don't rock with it. Let's dive into some of those reasons that I really feel like they hate homesteaders. My first reason is just going to be very simple, y'all. Cultural differences. It's that simple. So a lot of homesteaders have different values and religious beliefs that kind of oppose those of the mainstream society, and sometimes those things can clash. So we live in a world where, you know, we have a capitalistic society, and we engage with that society every day. Most people are okay and prefer to live in city centers. They want to be able to just go to the grocery store, get their food, go home, not worry or even have to think about where it came from. They love, you know, just the city life, whether it's going out to bars and clubs, just being social, raising their kids in the city, where there's a lot of things that make life easier. Your park might be around the corner, maybe there's a full neighborhood of kids, what have you, right? Well, most homesteaders, keyword being most, of course, live in rural areas, and you can see how those two lifestyles can clash. Most homesteaders probably don't live that close to a grocery store, you know, because they're out in a rural area. And those that do, like us, for example, we could get to Walmart in like 13 minutes. And we live in the middle of nowhere, essentially, in between Tampa and Orlando. But many people we know in this lifestyle, we grow our own food, we raise our own meat, right? So we're really going to the grocery store for the bare essentials, and that clashes with the culture. It's really that simple. Our kids live in rural areas where our schools aren't overcrowded. Our teachers can actually teach our children. The values are different, right? Most likely the school board is night and day from the city or suburbs versus the school board of a rural school district, right? There's a lot of differences that make the cultures different. And then once again, many of us homeschool. My family, we don't homeschool, but that's because we really love the school district because they check all the boxes that we want to see when it comes from the school board, school administration, the teachers, and we get to see the curriculum. So for now, we're okay with our daughter, our oldest daughter, going to school, and our youngest daughter starting kindergarten next year, which is crazy. So let's talk about fear of change. Another reason I think that there's some hate for homesteaders. You know, the fear of change, just anything that challenges the societal norms and expectations, which can make people uncomfortable and defensive around their own life choices. I think deep down inside, and this is where I might be getting biased, but I think that a lot of people do yearn for a simple life, simple living. I mean, we see it on social media all the time, especially with the younger generation, Gen Z and the younger millennials. They really don't want to work hard for a lot of the things that they see older generations have. And I'm a millennial myself, so I'm somewhere in the middle because while my wife and I are cut from a cloth of hard work, I also agree with a lot of their points.
Can somebody explain to me in crayon eating terms why I make over 3 times the federal minimum wage and I cannot afford to live? And I do not want to hear the pull yourself up from your bootstraps, work 90 hours a week. That's not the goal, guys. That's not. That should not be our standard. When my parents were my age, they both made less than half of what I make, and they lived alone. I cannot afford to live anywhere alone. A 1-bedroom apartment, $1,800. 2-bedroom apartment, $2,200. Who can afford that? It is embarrassing to come out and say that it is a struggle to survive right now, but I know so many people are struggling. What are we doing? Where has the plot gone? We have lost it, folks. We have lost it. The American dream is dead. It is over. Gone and forgotten.
You know, like the TikTok you just saw. We have to pay for water. We have to pay for natural resources, right? So, like, I get it. But I do think deep down inside, because people yearn for the life that they see homesteaders, farmers, trad wives, stay-at-home moms, fill in the blank live, I think that leads to some of that hate because, as the saying goes, don't quote me, but jealousy and envy are one and the same. You know what I mean? They're cousins. I think when people see others living out the life that they would like to live, that leads them to not like it and feel a negative emotion. I think this comment points it out nice. This commenter said, "The negative commenters attacking these homesteaders remind me of the crab in a bucket story, where it becomes difficult for a crab to climb out of the bucket because the other crabs will grab it and pull it back in. These naysayers are unwilling or unable to change their own circumstances, and so instead of attempting to make incremental improvements in their own lives, instead spend their time tearing down anyone around them they perceive as improving their own lives." Now, that is a hot take, but overall I agree with it. No matter what the disagreement or the debate is, crab in a bucket mentality is just no good for society, man. We should always attempt to uplift each other, help each other. You know, if you perceive someone as doing better than you in life, man, figure out how they're winning. Don't hate on them. You know, I always talk about or give the example with my team and just with those I meet in life, especially if I feel like they could use this lesson of the iceberg. So, you know, when you think of an iceberg, the amount of the iceberg that you see above water is the small portion. It is much larger underwater. You cannot see it. And I equate that to success. And this can go for anything. But when you see someone that you perceive as being successful, wealthy, better off than you, better looking, whatever you perceive them as being better than you in, maybe looks isn't a good choice, because you're either born that way or you could pay for it. But when it comes to success specifically, you only see the top of the iceberg, the part that's above water. Below water, you don't see all the hard work, the sacrifice, the late nights, the blood, sweat, and tears, as the saying goes, that person put into whatever it is you're jealous or envious of. Ask questions. I've done that my whole life, and you'll be surprised how many people are willing to talk to you about whatever it is if you just ask them questions. My wife and I, we've made a long video of our story, how we met and how we ended up where we are with our homestead, living the life we live. And these things don't happen overnight. There's some very specific and intentional choices we've made in life. There's a lot of patience that goes along with it. And in this instant gratification world, once again, that makes people confront choices that they've made that may be a contributing factor into why they can't live the life that they yearn for. So let's dive into stereotypes. So I've mentioned them already. You have your trad wives. For those that aren't up on game, that just is short for traditional wife. A homemaker or housemaker, those that homeschool, homesteaders, off-gridders, tiny house, whatever. All of us kind of get lumped in together if you really think about it, because once again, there's a lot of intersectionality between those communities, and any of those can be the gateway that leads you to the next one, which is kind of funny, as this comment points out. 6 of my friends and I got together and purchased a milk cow. We each have a day we are responsible for milking her, and we keep that day's milk. We live in the suburbs, but one of us happens to have just enough room for the cow. How cool is that? Social media, of course, is a double-edged sword. And how ironic is that? Because here I am, you're watching me on a social media platform. The double-edged sword of social media is you can find content that feeds whatever you're looking for. If you agree with something, you can find content for that. If you disagree with something, you can find content for that. And I think a lot of the people that disagree with the categories that I've already named, they fall into rabbit holes themselves, like I did. And the algorithm's going to feed you that content where there's others that are, speaking about their dislike of traditional wives, their dislike of stay-at-home moms, their dislike of homesteaders.
No, and then to the left, they saw, oh boy, one of those TikTok, Instagram, real homesteading mothers. You know the type. If you don't know, I will explain it to you. They are white moms. Well, of course they are. Duh. We know that part. They are white, they are moms, and they live on the land like a farm or a ranch, and they seem to have disposable income, and they live in nature, but they're on their phones 24/7. They try to make other moms feel bad. See, you know how it goes. It's like, come with me on my day as a homesteading mom. The first thing I do when I wake up is rip the tape off my mouth and breathe in the air. I go downstairs to wake my 12-month-old, my 59-month-old, and my 162-month-old. I get them out of their chrysalis cots, which are designed to recreate the deep sleep of a caterpillar before they become a beautiful butterfly. Link in bio. And then we go outside, and it's time to go down to the pond to do our intentions for the day. We all hold hands, we go down, and we whisper our dreams into the mouth of a swan.
And naturally, there's going to be a lot of stereotypes in that type of content that's exaggerated. There's a lot of stereotypes that's uninformed. And I think it's, unfortunate because in today's world, I think a lot of us should be trying to figure out how can we live a simple life? How can we raise our own food? How can we raise our own, animals? How can we get more to a simple life so we can have community, right? The saying, when I was young, and I'm saying like I'm old or something, but it takes a village really was a real saying that I saw take action. Nowadays, I think it's just a saying. There's no action behind it, right? What happened to community gardens, victory gardens, things that we used to do as a country to sustain ourselves, right? Because we can't rely on the government to take care of us when times get hard. Not trying to make this political, but how's that going for you so far the last 3 to 4 years? Housing is too expensive. Interest rates are through the roof. Groceries are through the roof. Well, we go get our own eggs. We have freezers full of meat. We barter with neighbors that, I have a neighbor that does meat chickens. I don't need to do meat chickens because he does meat chickens. But I have beef, I have goat, I have other things that I could barter, right? It takes community. It really does. And I think it's unfortunate that these stereotypes allow people to feel the way that they feel about the community. All right, I saved this one for last, and for good reason. If you're still here, grab your popcorn. Not really sure how to dive into this one, but let's just call it what it is. I think that there's a lot of jealousy. So when I think of jealousy, another thing that comes to mind, or another feeling that comes to mind, is envy. And the opposite of envy is literally generosity, or the ability to feel joy for others and their success, and empathy for their failures, right? So this one is very layered because I think the jealousy comes from many different directions, but oftentimes it comes from the perceived notion of finances for those homesteaders, especially homesteaders that share on social media, right? There's a perceived notion that they have a lot of money, or they come from money, or they're privileged, or they come from a privileged background, especially if they're not a minority. And not sure the last time you did a search for this on YouTube, but there's not a lot of minority YouTubers in the homesteading niche. So unfortunately, there's evidence out there that may play into a little bit of those thoughts.
Starting a farm and buying land and livestock requires a lot of money, and there's a good chance you will lose all of that money. And without proper experience and finances, the average person could not handle this and wouldn't want to. More and more people are doing some version of pretending, and they don't need a dad worth millions to do it. They see something like the Ballerina farm and think, oh, they're right. This is better than what I've got here. It's simpler, it's purer, and then they take their tech money and their remote job and set up homestead in Montana, Wyoming, or Utah. They buy land from real agriculture producers who cannot hold on any longer, but the sort of purchase, along with their lack of need for the land to actually make their living, inflates the price of land all around them. So more producers sell, but at the same time, fewer producers who actually live off the land can buy or rent it for things like grazing, because the cost of land keeps going up. So spot on, and explains perfectly why this romanticization of like farm life and homesteading can be really dangerous and have negative impacts on real people.
You will never have this life because she's rich. Because she is making this out to look like it's attainable for you, and you think that this is a goal. This is not a goal. This is a trick to make you feel inadequate. The amount of privilege that it takes to get to this point is unattainable for 99% of humanity.
Over 65% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck. Most of us will never be wealthy. I think as long as these creators acknowledge where they come from, acknowledge their privilege, and they're transparent about how they afford to do what they do, and don't make content that is deliberately trying to bait us into buying products because we feel inferior.
Let's talk about money. So we have to figure out a way to not judge people or be jealous of people because they won the birth lottery. If we just call it what it is, are there homesteaders out there that are living on land that was passed down from their great-grandfather to their grandfather to their dad and now them, or however many generations it was passed down? Absolutely. Me personally, do I find jealousy or envy in that? No. I think that's goals, isn't it? If you had children, wouldn't you want to be able to do the same one day? I never really understood people who find envy or jealousy for those that were born into situations that they weren't born into. That child had no choice of who their parents were going to be, and it leads me back to my question, wouldn't you want to do the same? And I would like to think that that's your goal right now in life. You want to ensure your children have a better life than you had. And if you can really do it right, your children's children and your children's children's children, right? So, you know, for the people out there that are homesteaders or farmers, and the land and the home and maybe even money, equipment, tools, animals, these things are all very expensive. If it was passed on to you, that's a blessing. My wife and I, we want to do that for our children. That's why with the land that we obtain throughout our life journey, we want to create something that's generational for our family. And don't worry, yes, we know we're minorities. We'll definitely put it in a trust to protect it.
By 1910, African Americans owned around 16 million acres of land, much of it acquired through purchases and homesteading. But after years of violence, intimidation, and legal trickery, most of it was taken.
So yeah, Ballerina Farm, something that's popped up on social media and many people are speaking about because she comes from privilege. And because she comes from privilege, it's like by default, she's not allowed to live the kind of life that she lives. Or because she can easily obtain the things that she has, like 300 plus acres, all of the head of cattle and all the animals that she has, the home, like all her $20,000 stove, which honestly was probably closer to $30,000. People are envious of that, jealous of that, and they're accusing her of cosplay. They're accusing her of dressing up like she's a stay-at-home mom or like she's a homesteader. And I just think that's wrong. Just because she has money and she uses it in a way that you're not used to seeing people with money flaunt doesn't mean that she's not authentically living the life that she's living, raising her family on the land. I think it's refreshing actually for someone that comes from money to be living a simple life, not flaunting their private jets, their fancy cars, their Birkin bags, their shoe and clothing collection, and how they can afford groceries, because yes, that's a thing right now.
Okay, so how much should I just spend at Erewhon today for my clients? If you can see this, $3,515.09.
Crazy, right? Simply having groceries is something to flex nowadays. No, she lives a simple life. So I don't understand why the videos that, you just saw, why those people feel that way. It just blows my mind. So the moral of the story from someone that's a homesteader is it's okay if you disagree with others' lifestyle, but the hate that I've seen some on social media pour into attacking these different niches, my opinion is it needs to stop, right? Just because you don't like it doesn't mean that someone else can't love it, and find pure happiness and joy in it. Hey, if you love living in a city where you fight traffic, you don't even know your next door neighbor's name, but it's been your neighbor for years, you don't even like your next door neighbor, you drive a fancy car to impress people that you don't even like, you're drowning in debt. Okay, now I'm getting judgmental. See, we all have stereotypes, right? But if you like that, I love it for you, because that's the life that brings you happiness and satisfaction. This is the life that brings my family and I satisfaction and happiness, and that should be no reason to hate. So if you're new here, please remember to give this video a thumbs up. Consider subscribing. I think my family and I make pretty cool videos, and see you next time. Peace. The ghetto.